Hi, and welcome to week 2 of Poppa's Picks, brought to you by FantasyDonks.com, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know to start playing daily fantasy football. I'm Sean Big Poppa Williams, and I'm just going to be giving you my picks for this week of the NFL fantasy football season. The first category we're going to deal with today is quarterbacks, and number one on the board, with no surprise, is Peyton Manning of the Broncos. He's playing the Chiefs at home, and the Chiefs are terrible. Peyton Manning is amazing. We all know this to be true. His price tag is extremely high, but the Chiefs' defense and secondary is so bad that I believe that if you pay up for Peyton this week, you will probably get the points you need, and maybe even then some. Peyton has torched the Chiefs in the past, and I look for him to torch my Chiefs this coming Sunday. The second quarterback we have for you today is Andrew Luck of the Colts versus Philly. This is the highest over-under line of the week as issued by Vegas. Philly got lit up last weekend by Jacksonville. The Jags, as bad as their offense was, threw for 266 yards on the Eagles last week. Plus, the pace of play that the Eagles play at allows you to have more opportunities for Andrew Luck, and I think he's going to have a monster day. We'll talk about his targets here in a little bit. The third quarterback I have for you is that of Jake Locker of the Tennessee Titans versus the Cowboys. If you watched last week's segment, we covered how the Cowboys are a terrible defense and will continue to be a terrible defense until they prove otherwise, making them a play for any quarterback going against them in daily fantasy football. I really think that until the Cowboys prove different, the quarterbacks are going to continue to just pile up points against them. Locker is cheap. However, my one caution with Locker is a lot of the pundits out there seem to be on Jake Locker this week, and I believe that that'll mean a majority of the players on daily fantasy sites will buy him at his cheap value. So it might be a free fade, but no, you're not going to be exclusive in the quarterback arena when you pick Jake Locker at his price tag this week. The fourth quarterback I have for you this week is Nick Foles of the Eagles versus the Colts in Indianapolis. Now, like I said, this game has the highest over-under line of any of the games, and Peyton Manning lit up the Colts last week. The Colts are now down with their best pass rusher. Mathis tore his Achilles tendon this week and is out for the season, so that means Foles will be able to stay in the pocket a little longer, throw the ball down the field, and get big points for his targets. The risk-reward play I have for you coming in number 5 is Carson Palmer. And he plays the New York Giants this week at New York. And as Charles Barkley would put it, the Giants are terrible. And they got torched by Stafford and Megatron in week 1 to the tune of 346 yards and multiple touchdowns. I like Carson Palmer here. The reason why this is a risk-reward play is because he underperformed a little bit last week. But at the price tag he has and at this matchup, I think you could be sneaky playing Carson Palmer against the Giants and win some fantasy football contests. But now that we've covered the quarterbacks, let's move on to the running back position. The first running back we have for you this week is that of Monty Ball against the Kansas City Chiefs. Once again, my Chiefs are bad, and things got even worse for their defense as we lost our all-pro linebacker in Derek Johnson, and we lost one of our defensive linemen as well for the season. I expect Monty Ball to have a good game as well. Keep in mind, the over-under line says that there are going to be a lot of points scored, and Denver is favored by 13.5 points. I don't see the Chiefs coming anywhere near that, which means that the Broncos are going to score a lot of points. And if you look to the historical matchup here, Monty Ball actually had his first breakout game in the NFL against the Kansas City Chiefs last year, rushing for over 100 yards and a touchdown. I think he can pay off big, even though he's a little bit more expensive. I love the Broncos players this week, if you can't tell, especially against Kansas City. Man, we're bad. The number 2 running back I have for you is CJ2K, Chris Johnson for the New York Jets, and he is at Green Bay this weekend. He performed great last week. If you were watching our segment, he was on our list, performed way above his value, got us close to 20 points. Green Bay got gashed last weekend by the Seahawks. They gave up 137 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns to Marshawn Lynch. I see CJ2K having a monster day against Green Bay as well. His cost is still really cheap on the sites. I think that's where you can get really good value by playing CJ2K. The third running back I have for you is even more of an extreme value play, and that's Matt Asiata versus the Patriots. Now, the Patriots gave up 193 yards and a TD last week to the Miami Dolphins. Last year, Asiata actually came in relief of Adrian Peterson when Adrian Peterson was injured, and Asiata had a huge game that helped fantasy players that saw his value buy win tournaments and win heads-up matches. I think Asiata is a great play this week. The New England run defense is terrible, and you can easily run on him, as Miami proved last week. Asiata makes a great play at minimum price on all the sites. Keep in mind, Adrian Peterson is gone for the week, so Asiata has been named the starter. I love this play. Number 4, and the only reason I have him at number 4 is because he carries a little bit more expensive price tag, is that of Giovanni Bernard for the Bengals. He plays the Falcons this week at Cincinnati. The Falcons gave up the most points to fantasy running backs in week 1. They gave up 119 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns, and then allowed 8 receptions for 64 yards in the Saints week 1, against the Saints week 1. I think Giovanni Bernard may have a beast day. And what I mean by beast day here is I'm talking 20 plus points with a ceiling around 30. I really truly believe that Giovanni Bernard could torch the Falcons, and it might be a wonderful play for you to move up in the standings of a GPP or tournament play, as what GPP means. The 5th running back I have for you is another value play. He's a little bit more expensive because the news came out that his starter was out earlier, and Terrence West for the Cleveland Browns. Now, Terrence West plays the Saints this week, and the Saints gave up 108 rushing yards and 5 catches for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns last week under running backs. I think Terrence West is going to have a good day against the Saints defense, as long as the Saints don't blow them out of the water and Terrence West is left not getting carries. But I think if that's the case, Terrence West will still get catches in that offense, as Crowell is not the pass catching back. It's clearly Terrence West. And we know Ben Tate's gone for the week. So really, I think Terrence West will get a lion's share of the work. I think he'll put up good points, and he's super cheap on all the sites and has a juicy matchup to boot. I think it's the risk-reward play of the week, and hopefully that works out well for you. So now that we've covered running backs, let's go to the tight end position. The tight end position, some people say, is really shallow, and it makes it hard to decide. I don't think it's shallow, especially with some juicy matchups this week. I'm going to go ahead and give you the 5 that I normally do. And number 1, no surprise whatsoever here, is Julius Thomas. I told you the Chiefs are bad. Julius put up 35.4 points last week, and the Chiefs secondary is awful, and Peyton likes to torch us. He has a huge price tag on most of the sites, but I think he's well worth it, especially with a ceiling of 35 points. Like, that will win you tournaments if you make the rest of your lineup well with guys hitting 35. That's how you win those contests, and it for sure locks you up in a head-to-head. The next tight end I have for you is Ertz versus the Colts. Once again, the highest over-under line, and if you want to be contrarian with this pick, you could pick Selleck. I think both of them are going to get points. As I said before, last week, Julius torched the Colts for 35.4 points to the tight end. Selleck's minimum price is at minimum price tag on most of the sites. That's what makes him juicy. But Ertz is probably going to have the bigger game, but he carries with him a higher price tag. So if you want to value save, go Selleck and be contrarian. If you want to go with the stud, go with Ertz here at tight end. I think you can get a lot of points. out of this game, and so does Vegas, as the over-under is the highest for the week once again. The third tight end I have for you is that of Delanie Walker. He's a fellow CMSU alum. That's where I graduated from. And he draws the Cowboys this week, who are terrible at defense and terrible at stopping anyone. We saw what Vernon Davis was able to do to the Cowboys defense against tight ends last week. He put up a monster score. He's a cheap alternative to Ertz and Julius, and I believe he'll do you well this week. The fourth tight end I have for you is Martellus Bennett versus San Francisco. The Black Unicorn, as he gave himself that nickname, is poised to have a monstrous game this week for a couple of reasons. The first is that both Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffries are listed as questionable, and inside sources say that Alshon Jeffrey is most likely not going to go. I think that increases the number of targets that Bennett will see. I think that that Cutler loves throwing the ball to Bennett, as is proved in the past and in week 1. And I think the Black Unicorn is going to have a beast of a week. He's also fairly cheap on most of the sites, so it allows you to stud up more running back or a wide receiver, or even at quarterback with some of the stud quarterback plays that are juicy this week. The risk-reward tight end coming in the 5 spot this week is that of Larry Donnell. Most of you are probably like, Larry Donnell, who is that? If you were watching last week's game, Larry Donnell is the tight end of the New York Giants, and he's the only target that Eli Manning apparently could hit, as Eli Manning had trouble hitting any other target at all. The matchup here is really juicy, as he's playing the Cardinals. They were the worst team last year against tight ends. And like I said, Donald was the only person on the Giants team that could catch balls last week. I like Donald in this play. He's super cheap. Once again, cheaping out at tight end this week with some juicy matchups could allow you to value buy other positions. I like those plays this week. But now that we've got tight ends out of the way, let's go to wide receivers. Now, some of you might think I'm copping out here, but I truly believe what I'm about to tell you. In the number 1 spot for wide receivers this week, I believe in all Peyton Manning targets. That's right. All the Broncos wide receivers should be people that you have on your team. Demaryius Thomas, Julius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders. Pick one, and maybe even pick 2 of these guys, and take advantage of the fact that the Chiefs are terrible and are going to give up a ton of points to the Broncos this weekend. The second wide receiver that I have for you this week are all the Colts targets. Once again, highest over-under line of any game. Reggie Wayne, T.Y. Hilton, or you can even throw a dart here on Knicks. Both of their tight ends are also in play here. You can get a lot of good value out of the Colts players this week. I think they're underpriced for the production they give and for the matchup. That's why I'm recommending all of them. Most of my teams, as you will probably figure out, will include multiple pieces, like a Broncos piece here, a Colts piece here, and that brings us to the number 3, where I'll have another piece, and that is all the Eagles targets. They're cheaper than they should be on most of the sites. Macklin's super cheap. Cooper's really cheap. Matthews, they're all 3 in play, along with Ertz, as we said before, or even the contrarian play in Selleck. I love the Eagles targets. So does Vegas. That game should be high scoring in a shootout, and those guys should pay off. My 4th wide receiver that I have for you this week is that of Kendall Wright and Justin Hunter versus Dallas. We've talked about how bad Dallas's defense is. I love both these wide receivers in this matchup. Jake Locker should be able to throw all day to these guys, and they should have monster games. Their price tags are fairly cheap, especially Justin Hunter's. Feel free to pick one of these guys and put them on your team with confidence. The last and 5th position, the last risk-reward play of the week is that of Allen Hurns. Some of you are probably like, are you serious? Yes, Allen Hurns against the Washington Redskins. The Redskins secondary is suspect, to say the least. The only problem, and Hurns had a monster week last week. The only problem with that is Hurns' monster production mostly came, almost all of it came in the first half. The Eagles adjusted and then proceeded to shut him down. If the Washington Redskins can make a similar adjustment, I would worry that he might not put up the points you need. He's still really cheap, and we saw what the ceiling could be for Allen Hurns. and all the other wide receivers for Jacksonville are broken. So he really is the only target there. I think it's a great risk-reward play. A lot of people will probably fade him thinking last week's a fluke. I think you can go with him if you wanted to throw a dart in a tournament and be fairly successful. Well, I hope you enjoyed Poppa's picks for this week. I'm Sean Big Poppa Williams for FantasyDonks.com. Feel free to check out the website where we break down all the different amazing contests and free rolls this week that you would want to enter. We also give you links to those sites so you can join them easily. I'd like to point out that Draft Day is giving you, if you join one of the links from our site, is giving you a free $20 Frenzy entry. That's the tournament that if you notice on Facebook or Twitter, that I cashed out $500 in last week. It was a lot of fun and a great hit, and hopefully we can get you joined up and get a free hit for $500 or so. That would be awesome. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to hit me up on Facebook or at BigPoppaDB8 on Twitter, and I will get back to you as soon as I can and answer any fantasy questions you might have. Until then, good luck on Sunday Fun Day. Hopefully we all make some money and have fun. Later, guys.